guys, welcome back to my channel. For Duggar family latest news update, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. The warm Arkansas sun had just begun to rise over Springdale, painting the sky in hues of orange and soft pink. It was supposed to be an ordinary day for the Duggar family, but fate had other plans that would test their faith, their strength, and their unity in ways they never imagined. Jim Bob Duggar, the well-known patriarch of the large Duggar family, had woken up early. His mornings were often filled with responsibilities, phone calls, ministry meetings, real estate management, and taking care of the bustling home filled with memories of children, grandchildren, and years of family life. He was a man who carried many burdens, but on this particular morning, he felt unusually weary. Michelle, his beloved wife, noticed it. "Are you feeling all right, Jim Bob?" she asked softly as he adjusted his tie before heading out the door. He gave her a reassuring smile, though his eyes betrayed exhaustion. "I'm fine, Michelle. Just a little tired. I'll be back soon." Michelle hesitated, her heart uneasy. But she kissed him goodbye, praying silently for his safety as he climbed into his silver SUV. The accident. It was mid-morning when Jim Bob set off toward a meeting across town. The roads were busier than usual, and the late summer heat shimmered on the asphalt. As he drove down a familiar stretch of highway, his phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A text from one of his older children. Distracted for just a moment, Jim Bob glanced at the screen. That second of divided attention would change everything. A large truck, carrying heavy construction materials, suddenly swerved into his lane. Jim Bob tried to react, jerking the steering wheel to avoid collision. Tires screeched, metal clashed, and in an instant, his SUV spun violently across the highway. The impact was brutal. Glass shattered, airbags deployed, and the sound of twisting steel echoed through the air. The truck came to a grinding halt, but Jim Bob's vehicle was left crumpled on the side of the road, smoke rising from the hood. Within minutes, sirens pierced the air. Paramedics rushed to the scene, finding Jim Bob unconscious, his pulse faint. "He's critical," one EMT said urgently as they loaded him into the ambulance. Michelle gets the call. Back at the Duggar home, Michelle was folding laundry when the phone rang. She answered casually, expecting it to be one of her children. Instead, it was the hospital. "Mrs. Duggar, your husband has been in a serious accident. We need you to come immediately." Michelle's heart dropped. Her hands trembled as the basket of clothes spilled to the floor. She could barely breathe, and "Oh no, oh dear Lord," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Gathering her strength, she called out to her children who were at home. "Something's happened to Dad. We need to pray." Jana, the eldest daughter still living at home, quickly took charge of the younger siblings while Michelle and a few of the older boys rushed to the hospital. The drive felt endless. Every second stretched into eternity as Michelle replayed Jim Bob's smile that morning, fearing it might have been their last goodbye. The hospital. When Michelle arrived at the emergency room, she was met by doctors with grave expressions. "Mrs. Duggar, your husband sustained severe injuries. He has had trauma, broken ribs, and internal bleeding. We're doing everything we can, but he's in critical condition." Michelle broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Her world felt like it was collapsing. The man she had built her life with, raised 19 children with, prayed alongside every morning and night, was fighting for his life. She collapsed onto a waiting chair, her hands covering her face. "God, please not Jim Bob. Please don't take him from us." The family gathers. News spread quickly among the Duggar children. Phones rang endlessly as siblings called one another, each voice breaking with fear. Jill and Derek rushed from Oklahoma, Jessa and Ben from across town. Jinger and Jeremy booked the first flight from Los Angeles, while John David drove in with Abby, silent tears in his eyes. The hospital waiting room was soon filled with Duggars, sons, daughters, sons-in-law, daughters-in-law, and grandchildren too young to understand but old enough to sense the sorrow in the air. Michelle tried to stay strong, but every time a doctor emerged, she held her breath in terror. She leaned heavily on her children, and together they formed a circle of prayer, their voices trembling as they begged God for a miracle. "Please save Dad," Josiah whispered, tears streaming down his face. "We can't lose him," Joanna added, holding her baby tightly. Michelle clutched Jana's hand, whispering, "I don't know if I can do this without him." Flashbacks of love and life. As Michelle sat by Jim Bob's hospital bed later that evening, listening to the beeping of machines keeping him alive, memories flooded her mind. She remembered the first time she met him, his bright smile, the way he spoke so passionately about faith. She remembered their wedding day, the promises they made, the home they built together brick by brick, child by child. She thought of all the late nights rocking newborns, the laughter at family dinners, the chaos of road trips, and the joy of watching their children grow into adults through every trial, public scrutiny, financial struggles, and personal challenges. Jim Bob had always been her anchor. And now, lying still and broken, he was the one who needed her strength. She leaned close, whispering through tears, "I'm here, Jim Bob.
Please come back to me. We still need you."
"I still need you." The children's reactions. Each Duggar child processed the tragedy differently. Jana, the quiet nurturer, tried to be strong for her siblings, though her heart was shattered. Jill, who had been more distant from the family in recent years, cried openly, the old wounds of estrangement momentarily forgotten as she realized how fragile life was. Jessa sat silently in a corner, clinging to Ben's hand, praying desperately in her heart. Jinger, usually composed, broke down when she saw her father hooked up to tubes. Jeremy held her as she sobbed uncontrollably. Joanna hugged Michelle tightly, whispering, "We'll get through this together, Mom." The younger Duggar boys, Josiah, Jedediah, and Jeremiah, paced the hallways, restless with grief. Even little grandchildren sensed the sadness. Spurgeon, Jess's young son, tugged at her dress and asked innocently, "Why is everyone crying, Mommy? Is Grandpa going to heaven?" Jess's heart broke as she hugged him tightly, whispering, "We're praying that Grandpa stays with us a little longer." A night of uncertainty. As night fell, the family camped out in the waiting room. Coffee cups, tissues, and whispered prayers filled the space. Every sound from the hallway made Michelle's heart race, terrified of hearing the worst. Doctors warned them that the next 24 hours were critical. Jim Bob's survival hung by a thread. Michelle barely slept. She sat by his bed, holding his hand, singing softly the hymns they had sung together over the years. Her tears fell freely, soaking into his sheets. She would not leave his side. A miracle or goodbye. The next morning, the doctor entered with cautious words. "Mrs. Duggar, your husband made it through the night. He's still very weak, but there's a chance he may wake up." The room filled with gasps of relief, followed by fresh waves of tears. It wasn't over yet, but there was hope. Michelle clutched Jim Bob's hand even tighter. "You hear that, sweetheart? You're still." Jessa Duggar revealed second husband Ben Seawald divorce. $1.1 million debt. It all started with whispers, rumors that Jessa Duggar Seawald, once considered one of the most grounded daughters of Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, was facing the darkest chapter of her life. Fans who had followed the Duggar family since 19 kids and counting were stunned when the headline broke. Jessa Duggar reveals second husband Ben Seawald divorce confirmed. The shocking story didn't end there. According to insiders, Jessa and Ben's marriage had crumbled under the crushing weight of $1.1 million debt, a financial disaster no one expected from the once picture-perfect couple. What followed was a storm of betrayal, heartbreak, and surprising new beginnings, the perfect beginning. Jessa Duggar married Ben Seawald in November 2014, in what fans considered a fairy tale wedding. Cameras captured the soft glow of candlelight, the smiles of her enormous family, and the quiet determination of Ben, who was just 19 at the time, to the outside world. They were a love story built on faith and simplicity. Ben was kind-hearted, soft-spoken, and adored Jessa deeply. Together, they welcomed 4 children, Spurgeon, Henry, Ivy, and Fern. But behind the cameras, behind the picture-perfect Instagram posts, there were struggles. The cracks began to show. BY 2021, subtle tension between Jessa and Ben became visible. Friends whispered that Jessa had grown frustrated with Ben's lack of ambition. While Ben took odd jobs and occasionally preached, Their growing family required far more financial stability. Jim Bob Duggar, always known for controlling his children's lives, reportedly scolded Ben multiple times for not stepping up. Jessa often defended her husband publicly, but privately, she too wondered if they could survive under constant financial stress. Things worsened when Ben's small business venture, a Christian book and coffee shop, collapsed after just 8 months. The investment had been risky, and when the doors shut, the Seawalds were already drowning in loans. The debt spiral. $1.1 million disaster by 2023. Court records revealed something shocking. Jessa and Ben were in $1.1 million debt. The majority came from loans from Jim Bob Duggar to support Ben's failed business, a mortgage on their Fayetteville home that they could no longer afford, medical bills from complications during Jessa's last pregnancy. Ben was devastated. He had tried to keep the financial problems quiet, but when Jim Bob found out, he exploded in anger. For Jim Bob, appearances mattered more than anything, and the thought of one of his daughters being publicly humiliated by debt was unbearable. The breaking point: divorce. Friends close to Jessa admitted that the breaking point wasn't money alone. It was trust. Jessa discovered that Ben had secretly taken out a second loan in her name, hoping to cover the family's mounting bills. When she confronted him, the argument shook their marriage to the core. Ben broke down, confessing that he was ashamed and afraid to admit failure. Jessa, furious but heartbroken, realized she no longer recognized the man she had married. By early 2024, the rumors were true. Jessa filed for divorce. Shockwaves in the Duggar family. The Duggar family was split. Jim Bob and Michelle were furious. Divorce was forbidden in their world, and Jessa's choice threatened the image of their family brand. Jim Bob reportedly told her, "You're bringing shame on us." Jinger Vuolo, now living in California and more independent, defended Jessa, saying, "Sometimes walking away is the only way to protect yourself and your children." Jill Duggar Dillard, who had also broken away from the family's strict rules, stood firmly beside her sister. Josh Duggar's imprisonment only made things worse, as critics claimed the Duggar family was falling apart piece by piece. Fans were stunned. Was Jessa, the once loyal, obedient Duggar daughter, really divorcing Ben the Revelation, a second husband? Then came the most shocking twist of all. Just months after her divorce, Jessa appeared at a small Arkansas church event wearing a new diamond ring. At her side was a man few recognized, Daniel Hart, a 34-year-old Christian entrepreneur from Texas. Daniel was everything Ben wasn't: financially stable, ambitious, confident. He had built a successful chain of Christian bookstores across Texas and Oklahoma. He reportedly met Jessa through mutual friends in ministry. At first, the Duggar family tried to deny the relationship, but Jessa, no longer under Jim Bob's thumb, confirmed it herself during a quiet interview. "Yes, Daniel and I are together. He's been a blessing in my life and has given me strength during my hardest times." The internet exploded. Fans react. Support and outrage. Social media went into meltdown mode. Some praised Jessa. "She deserves happiness. She's suffered long enough." Others criticized. "She moved on too fast." What about her kids? Conservative Duggar fans were horrified. "This is against God's will." Meanwhile, Ben Seawald remained silent for weeks, only posting Bible verses about forgiveness and trials. Finally, in a raw social media video, he admitted, "I failed Jessa. I let pride get in the way. I will always love her, but I pray she finds peace." The $1.1 million shadow. Even as Jessa began a new chapter, the debt lingered like a shadow. Reports suggested Daniel Hart helped pay off part of the debt, offering Jessa a financial lifeline. Critics accused her of marrying him for money, but friends insisted their connection was genuine. Jim Bob, however, was furious. He accused Daniel of stealing his daughter and destroying what little was left of the Duggar family's reputation. The Duggar legacy in crisis. BY mid-2025, the Duggar family name was in ruins. Josh Duggar remained in prison. Jill and Jinga had distanced themselves completely. Jana was unmarried at 35 and facing her own scandals, and now Jessa, the golden child, had divorced and remarried. The carefully crafted Duggar image of purity, obedience, and family unity had shattered. Yet for Jessa, something new was beginning. Jessa's new chapter, in a heartfelt online post. Jessa finally shared her truth. For years, I lived in fear. Fear of disappointing my family, fear of being judged, fear of failing. But I've learned that failure is not the end. It's the beginning of finding your true self. My children deserve a strong, secure home. I may not have chosen this path, but I believe God led me here. She announced her engagement to Daniel officially in July 2025, confirming that they would wed in a small. Ben, meanwhile, focused on rebuilding his life. He moved into a small apartment, worked as a youth pastor, and saw his children on weekends. Though heartbroken, he told friends he was committed to co-parenting peacefully. I lost my marriage, but I won't lose my kids, he said. The world watches. AS tabloids continue to dissect every detail of Jessa's new life. One thing is clear. The Duggar family empire will never be the same. What was once seen as a model of Christian family values has crumbled into a web of betrayal, scandal, and reinvention. But for Jessa, maybe, just maybe, this was freedom.